Okay, today we're gonna talk about lean management principle. There's gonna be 5 parts. First is establishing what gives value for the customer, then identifying the value chain or value flow that creates value, then the create value flow, and finally work with a pull-driven approach, and of course making constant improvements. So let's go with the first one. Establishing what gives the value to the customer. Well, first is, of course, we're focusing on quality, then of course comes price, functions, appearances, availability, what is the most value for the customer. Uh, Understanding if the customer wants the product to be the cheapest or have the best quality, or to know that he can buy the product anywhere in any store. Knowing that, we have to focus our efforts towards it. Removing the waste that we don't need. The waste is basically if the customer is focusing on the price, we don't need the quality of the product. We can focus on buying the cheapest material to make the product. Identifying the value chain or value flow that creates value. Like I said, if the customer wants the cheapest product, we have to focus on finding the cheapest material. That is ignoring the quality, focusing more on the product's, product's cheapest production. Not caring if the product can be purchased in every store, just caring that the product is the cheapest. It can be sold in one store in the city, but it will be the cheapest because we know that the customer focuses on buying it the cheapest. Creating value flow, it's basically production of the product without any interruptions. Like we get the material, we immediately start on producing the parts, then assembling the parts without any pauses and any gaps, and distributing to the shops as fast as possible. Basically, no part of the factory is at sleep. If somebody is producing the parts, the factory part that's assembling the device, the car, already has enough parts to do their job. And when they use all the parts, the factory part that's producing the parts already has new parts to give to the team that puts the parts together. So basically, there cannot be any pauses in the creating of the product, and of course the distribution also. There cannot be any products that stay in the factory without being sold. They have to be constantly sold because the customer constantly needs the product. He has to buy the product. That we know that the customer values the product. He constantly buys, so we need constantly to produce the product without any pauses. Well, work with a pull-driven approach is basically making sure that the customer is happy with the product. That the customer doesn't have any complaints. It's not basically focusing on creating the product, distributing, but focusing on knowing that the customer likes, that he doesn't send the product back. Focusing that the customer is happy what he bought. If he wanted the cheapest product, if he wants the cheapest and he gets the cheapest product, and he doesn't complain if the quality is bad. But if the customer wants the best quality, then we have to focus on it. And we have to ignore the price. We have to make the product as best as possible, that the customer doesn't send the product back. That is a constant feedback from the customer. Did he like the product, and so on. Well, making improvement constantly is basically focusing on the first 4 parts of that I said, that making the product cheaper and so on. That there's no such thing as perfect perfection. You have to constantly make improvements, constantly finding faults in your part system, and so on. Eliminating as much waste as possible. Try to reach the highest level of perfection. Of course, you will not reach the perfect perfection, but you constantly must reach a higher level of perfection. That is what's making improving constantly. And finally, I would like to just sum it up what is waste: overall production, unnecessary movements, waiting unnecessary transport, excess, inventory defects, and so on. Thank you for your time. How do I pause? How do
Jesus. Do you just love the camera?
Yeah, the camera loves me. How do I pause?
How long? 6 minutes, that's okay. It's still recording.
Yeah, how do I pause?